how did your relationships change before your first exit, then after the exit, and then now as a second run company? Like, do you find that you've had some shifts and changes in those relationships? Do you find that they're more or less consistent? Do you interact with people a different way now? Like, what has that success been like for you?
It's been pretty not much of a change. You know, I've always kept personal and business separate. Going back to playing poker, you know, I've always had more money than what people would assume. And so I'm not a very flashy person, whereas that first exit, you know, with some people, you know, can create these large personality differences. Whereas I don't think people would have even really noticed had they not talked to me that I'd, you know, had an exit or that I had started another company. So I'm pretty consistent in my personal life. And I think that level of consistency is also just a very good place to be as a person. If you're going to go through these big emotional changes of starting companies, of selling them, and, you know, going through this process.
I think it also revolves around maintaining your interpersonal relationships. And I encountered this before with some entrepreneurs where you eat, sleep, and breathe your business, right? But inevitably, if you're kind of talking to a dear friend, because you eat, sleep, and breathe your business, it might wind up being a little one-sided. You kind of lose touch of all those normal ways that you would connect with someone. Like, they're working their typical job with a boss and with all of these kind of corporate issues, whereas you have totally different issues. But I think we're both pretty good about maintaining relationships where we have that back and forth, where we maintain interest in the other person. And I think that's key in keeping yourself grounded and also maintaining your interpersonal relationships through running a business, because it is very easy to get really isolated and feel like you don't have support.
So it's interesting that you guys brought up those two things. It sounds like you guys hedged the stress of starting a business by staying yourself and not really, like, because your life was still stable, you could take on these massive risks within the business, versus I think if you were maybe going through some personality changes, or your interpersonal skills with people were falling apart due to whatever, I think that would have caused more stress for the business. So it's interesting that you guys hedged your bets via your personality and your relationships instead of on a more financial way, which is not to say that you didn't hedge your bets financially, but it's just interesting that you brought in the people aspect.
Yeah, I mean, in general, when you're starting a company, when you're growing it, if you start a company, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to feel tired and miserable because it's growing so fast, or you're going to feel tired and miserable because it's not growing. And so having some foundation of normalcy in your life to be able to go back to on a personal level, and it does not matter what your financial background is. It doesn't matter how much money you have to pull from. If you cannot take that emotional roller coaster, which is one of those things I did learn from playing poker. I mean, the emotional roller coaster of poker, I'd be up or down several $100,000 in a day, and almost starting a business is better than that. It's like, oh, wow, this is amazing. No matter what I do, I'd only be down a couple $100,000 a month. This is such a much longer, gentler time frame. Yeah. So it is a good way to learn how to deal with that emotional roller coaster.